Good morning and welcome. My name is Danny, and this morning we are going to be getting into food styling. This is one of my favorite topics, and I can't wait to help you get started with this. This morning we're going to be talking about my top 3 strategies on styling any food, even if it's brown or mushy, in under 10 minutes. And I know that seems like kind of a big claim, but this is actually a big part of what we do, and I've really systematized how we style here, and it really keeps our workflow really tight. So I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see some examples, and let's get that switched over here. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to talk about this morning is working with your food really quickly. Food tends to die on the set very fast, and so you want to go ahead and get started with it right away, and don't let it sit on your set for a long time. The easiest way to do that is going to be to have your set already prepped before you get started with your food, and then bring your food in right when it's hot and fresh. But my first strategy here for really styling difficult foods is to think about pops of color. As you are designing your recipe and as you're putting your recipe together, you want to think about what is going to add visual interest to that recipe. Now, if you have recipes that are very brown, maybe they are very monochromatic, they don't have a lot of variation within them, think about things that will add visual interest. So reds, purples, oranges, anything like that is going to pop color and add contrast. You'll also see here we've got pops of color with the white and the pomegranate seeds. And over here on brown and mushy things, we've got pops of color here with the carrots. To note about this is if you're going to cook something that is brown and mushy, a lot of times those are slow cooker dishes. They are dishes that cook for a really long time, or they just break down the food. So with things like that, you want to think about that ahead of time when you're styling and make adjustments to accommodate that. So in this situation, when we pulled this out of the slow cooker, all of the carrots were completely brown. They didn't look like carrots anymore. So for food styling purposes, what you want to do is chop up a few extra carrots and then just steam them really quickly to where they still have a lot of color left in them. So all of these things take a little bit of forethought. So as you're writing out your recipe, make sure you're thinking about colors in there. If you think about a chicken teriyaki bowl, for example, you don't really have any color in there. You've got white rice, white chicken, brown sauce, and there's nothing really happening there. So thinking about adding bell pepper, thinking about adding in maybe some bright green snap peas, things like that to really add that visual dynamic to your recipe. Over here, this was a chicken marsala dish, and it didn't have any color in it at all. It was literally pasta and mushrooms and this beautiful stuffed feta chicken. So we added in these great cherry tomatoes and really gave it some color texture there. The second strategy that we use for food styling difficult things is to use what we affectionately call sprinkles. So anything that you can toss across the set, whether that is sesame seeds, whether it's fresh berries, whether it's almonds, we always start with coarse salt and coarse pepper when we're working with savory dishes. Almost every recipe, unless it's got another really dedicated sprinkle, like this bowl only has sesame seeds on it, we're going to start those savory dishes off with a good sprinkling of coarse salt and coarse pepper to really start that layering process. And you'll notice through these that there really is a layering process. You want to think about how you're shooting through your scene so that you don't accidentally miss all of your shots. So when you're starting this, you want to start with those pops of color, then you want to add in your sprinkles, and then after that, we want to add in things like sauces. So you'll see that some of these have both. Like this one has sprinkles of the berries. It's also got whipped cream, which you could technically say is like a sauce. But it's also got this maple syrup drizzle all over it. And the important thing to know is that the further along you progress in these, the more time you're taking, so the more opportunity your food has to have collapsed. And also, the more you get into sauces and things like that, you have the ability to really damage your set and start breaking down your set. And you want to make sure that you have captured images throughout the whole progression so that if you get to the end and you put on, say, a really drippy sauce and it just totally looks off, you want to make sure that you've had some shots done before that to where you can at least salvage your shoot if you can't start the set over. So keep that in mind as you're styling. The other thing that you can use for sprinkles in particularly desserts are things like chocolate chips, things like powdered sugar. The great thing about something like powdered sugar or cheese is that they can make really beautiful processed shots as you're going as well. So think about adding that sifting powdered sugar over the top of things as like a final shot, or maybe sprinkling cheese in there. Just be sure that you have gotten some shots that you think are acceptable in all the angles that you need before you start really playing with your set and making it super messy, because it can be really hard to recover the set after you start throwing a lot of things onto it. And then the final thing that we use are sauces. Again, they're very dynamic. They add a lot of movement, they add a lot of emotion to your recipe, and they really are a great way to make people's mouth water and just really get in there and make them hungry. But they can be problematic. So one of the things that we recommend with sauces is thinking about thickening your sauces. It's a fine line between having a sauce that's too thick and having a sauce that's too thin, but things like maple syrup really benefit from either being thickened down by boiling them or by being kept cold. You can also add Karo syrup to some sauces to help thicken it up, or increasing the ratio. So you might not, like for example, this drizzle sauce here is much, much thicker than the drizzle sauce that I would actually put on the cake. It has a lot more powdered sugar in it so that it's going to slow down the dripping of that down the cake and not just drizzle completely off the cake before I even have a time to take a shot. This was a peanut butter hummus sauce, and we thickened that up with lots of extra peanut butter so that it really comes out of there nice and smoothly. You do want to be careful that you don't get it too thick or globby so that it doesn't just kind of chunk out, but definitely the tendency would be for sauces to pour too quickly and to completely overwhelm your set. The other thing to know about sauces is as you're working with them, you want to make sure that you are either working with an assistant, or if you're just working solo, that you have your camera already set up on the angle that you want, and that you are either using a remote or you're using burst mode and really triggering really fast shots so that you have a lot to work with. And those are our 3 secrets. Just about everything you see here was shot with those things in mind. You can see here on this one we have all of those aspects coming into play. We've got pomegranate seeds to add that color and texture. They also act as a sprinkle. The eggs and the bacon and the drink in the background really add some visual interest here in terms of color. And then we have the pouring syrup that's just beautiful and makes you want to just dive into that. Same thing over here. A lot of times you may find that after you have a sauce on a dessert that you want to add the sprinkles after you put the sauce on. But just make sure you've got some shots there before you start playing there. And this one, again, it was kind of a boring looking green tan salad. So we added that purple cabbage aspect in there to really pop up the color and make it a little bit more of an exciting set. Okay, so those are our 3 secrets there. I'm going to hop over to the comments here and see if we've got any questions. If I can figure this out. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like we just have people wanting notes, so we'll get those sent out. And if you also want notes, also want the replay, feel free to comment on the video, and I will drop a link over to our free Facebook group. If you haven't joined our Facebook group, we would love to have you join us in there. And let me see if I can jump this back over here. There we go. I would love to see you in our Facebook group. Love to help you kind of critique through some of your photos. Drop me some comments. Let me know what else you'd like to see here on our Thursday classes. All right, have a great week, guys.